Hello everyone and welcome to our third live mobility webinar. My name is Chantelle Butcher and I'm one of the client account specialists at Relocation Africa. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and a link to the replay will be shared with all registrants later this week. We've also muted everyone's microphone for the duration of this webinar. During the session together, please feel free to type in questions in the chat box as you think of them. Rest assured in doing so, it will not create a disturbance. Then at the end of the webinar, I will aim to answer as many of your questions as possible. So today's topic we'll be reviewing is South African housing and school system. We will specifically cover topics including the types of properties in South Africa, the average rental price and property size in each of the major cities, the types of schools in South Africa. Then we'll also touch on the cost of these different types of schools, the school application process, as well as the breakdown of the school term. Please note that the data which we'll be reviewing this webinar relates to popular assignee cities in South Africa, and we will therefore be focusing on Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban. We'll begin with South African housing. Types of houses. We are blessed in South Africa to be able to provide assignees with an option to accommodate their specific property needs. The main factors that we are prioritized during the property selection process includes the assignee family composition, the duration of the contract, and the personal lifestyle of the assignees. So apartments, townhouse cluster complexes, or gated community livings are the preferred property options selected amongst assignees. Single travelers, they on the other hand tend to favor apartments or townhouses, either close proximity to the city or their place of business. Whereas assignees traveling with their family, they prefer properties close or within the school district. Now, if we specifically look at the gated communities and the home security available, many of the freestanding properties situated either within or out of a gated community do offer private garden and pool facilities. The gated communities estates are often located near the international schools and provide monitored security access into the premises. These gated estates are also regularly patrolled by private security companies. Security features are also fairly common in South African properties. Most of the properties in assignee preferred areas will generally have an existing alarm system installed. Additional features such as high walls, electric fences, and garden beams will actually depend on the specific properties chosen. Now we're going to review specifically the popular expat areas. The specific areas that are more popular for assignees do actually vary city to city. We're going to review each city in more detail in order to obtain a better understanding of the geographic distance between each suburb. So there we go. So if we look at Cape Town specifically, we can subcategorize Cape Town into four main subsections. So we have the southern suburbs, which is this area located over here. The southern suburbs is specifically popular for assignees with children and is located close to most of the international schools. Specific areas within the southern suburbs, such as Constantia, Claremont, Rondebosch, and Newlands, are actually very dense school areas. Then we have the northern suburbs, which is this area located over here. They offer the same property facilities as the southern suburbs, but is more economical in regards to housing prices. There's also more of a commute to the international schools. Then we have the CBD, or the city center, which is this area over here. That's also for assignees who prefer the high energy lifestyle. It's got a fantastic nightlife with a lot of bars and restaurants. It's also very popular for single travelers who enjoy the hustle and bustle of the city center. The last subsection, which I've been categorized, is what I refer to as coastal living, which is basically along Blouberg, Tableview area, Greenpoint, Sea Point, and Half Bay. These areas provide the assignees the option of living near the sea, and also many of the high-rising properties actually do overlook Cape Town's coastline. Fantastic. And now if we look at Durban specifically, Durban assignees tend to congregate towards the north. Let's zoom in a little bit. So this area over here. So Durban, generally the signees prefer this area based on the facilities and the lifestyle it does offer. So areas like Umhlanga, Lelusha, Westville, Morningside, and Beret are all within close proximities to the international schools and the famous Durban Beach, which runs along here. Umhlanga is the top one, is actually the more expensive option out of the 5 highlighted. In all the different slides, I've also indicated the airport just so you have a point of reference. Now, if we swap to Johannesburg, Johannesburg doesn't have a main business district like in Cape Town. The locations of the signees' place of work are widely dispersed amongst the city. The international schools are also widely distributed, so choice of location will depend on the specific school selected. We will be looking specifically at Johannesburg, which is located over here. So this area is highlighted as the north of Johannesburg, and Pretoria. The commute from Pretoria to Johannesburg is actually also quite a common one, which assignees and locals do take. It's about an hour's drive without traffic. So if we look at the northern suburbs of Johannesburg, as I indicated previously, are the more popular options for assignees to reside. Apologies. Sandton is actually the most popular suburb out of all of them because it's often known internationally for housing a 9-meter bronze statue of our former president, Nelson Mandela. Neighbouring suburbs such as Dainford, Bryanston, Rosebank and Sandhurst are all popular suburbs for assignees to congregate to. Just so you can have a look. Also, living on a Gulf estate, such as here in Dainford Gulf Estate. Living on a Gulf Estate is a common housing option for assignees to congregate to, and you can find them both in Johannesburg and Pretoria. These estate properties are fitted with modern features and appliances, local gym facilities, restaurants, swimming pools, and social clubs. It's also to be noted that travelling to work by car is the most popular form of transport in South Africa. Therefore, our public roads are subject to morning and afternoon congestion. Commuting to work can often result into 1 to 2 hour traveling time. Traveling to school, however, is generally 15 to 30 minutes if the assignee is living in that specific school district. These factors are always highlighted to the assignee when we review potential commuting options to work or school. Now, if I go back to the PowerPoint. Now we're going to be reviewing the average rental price. In the slides attached, we'll be reviewing 2 different types of properties in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban. This will allow us to get a better cost comparison as how these costs compare in each city. I have, however, specifically pulled the data on the most common single traveller and family-based assignee housing requests. Single travellers will most often request a 2-bedroom apartment, whereas assignees with families will often request at least a 3-bedroom house to accommodate the average family size, which consists of 2 adults, 2 children. We will then highlight the costs of both the furnished and unfurnished housing option. But it is to be noted that any property that include basic appliances are classified in South Africa as semi-furnished and will not be considered in our price comparison. Cape Town property prices are, however, known to be more costly in comparison to its neighbouring cities. This is based on the lifestyle Cape Town offers and the demand of property. We often have to reiterate this knowledge with our assignees who are relocating domestically, as they're always shocked at the value of money of Cape Town rental properties. We ensure that this is communicated to them during the initial contact with the assignee. So the average rental price in Cape Town. If we refer to the Cape Town graph, you can review that a 2-bedroom apartment in the popular assignee areas can be anything between 25 to 60,000 Rand furnished. That's represented in the orange bar. Or 20 to 50,000 Rand unfurnished, highlighted in the blue bar. A 3-bedroom house is priced anything between 45 to 80,000 Rand furnished, which is the yellow bar, or 35 to 75,000 Rand unfurnished in the grey. Now, if we review the same properties in Durban, which was most often favoured for its relaxed beach culture, this exact same two-bedroom apartment in the popular areas can be rented for anything between 12 to 50,000 Rand furnished in the orange, or 8 to 20,000 Rand in the blue. A three-bedroom house is priced anything between 14 to 60,000 Rand furnished, which is in the yellow, or 14 to 45,000 Rand unfurnished in the grey. Now, if you use the same information, Johannesburg being the third city which we'll be reviewing, it's often referred to as the cosmopolitan city of South Africa and has a reputation for a fast-paced lifestyle. If we review the exact same property in Johannesburg, you'll notice a distinct price difference. So if you can see, the same two-bedroom apartment can be rented for anything between 25 to 65,000 Rand in the orange, and that would be furnished, or 50 to 50,000 Rand unfurnished, highlighted in the blue. A three-bedroom house price is between 30,000 Rand plus furnished, indicated in the yellow, or 25 to 50,000 Rand unfurnished in the grey. Now, if we compare the data in the previous slides, it is therefore evident that the property prices in South Africa do actually vary dramatically city to city. This graph specifically works the average price of each type of property within each city, and we basically compare them against each other. So if you can see, and specifically the unfurnished section, just to make it easier for reviewing, an unfurnished two-bedroom house is 14,000 Rand in Durban and 30,000 Rand in Cape Town, and an unfurnished house in Johannesburg is 37,000 Rand 500, 37,500 and 50,000 Rand in Cape Town. Just a reminder to please post any questions that you might have in the interim in our chat box regarding housing in South Africa, because we're going to be proceeding to our next section. We're going to now be reviewing the schooling system in South Africa. The types of schools. South Africa has a three-tier schooling system, which has a primary, secondary, and tertiary division. Many of the schools in South Africa are in high demand based on their prestigious name and the quality of education they offer. This often leads to a wait list for placement. It is also compulsory for all children in South Africa between the ages of 6 and 15 to attend school. Boarding houses is also a very popular feature for primary, secondary, and tertiary institutes. So students can also be enrolled either weekly or termly, depending on the individual family location as well as the family needs. Most of the boarding house facilities are connected to single-sex schools. Children who are younger than school-going age are able to attend a nursery school. Montessori-based education is internationally known and have facilities in many of the suburbs in South Africa. We have many privately owned preschools which do offer spacious play areas as well-equipped teachers. These schools provide parents with the option for their children to stay at the school either half day or full day to accommodate the signee's work schedule. These schools are also very diverse and support a child's emotional and physical growth. We also have organizations in South Africa who can assist in the employment of nannies and au pairs who are skilled to assist your children at home or after hours. However, in saying this, most assignees will send their children to either an international school or reputable private school suggested by a current or previous colleague. The current skill set of the child and the duration of the assignee's contract are factors that need to be reviewed when a school is being selected. Assignees are required to apply for their own children's school placement. We are able to assist assignees with setting up relevant appointments or researching the school options in the area. We are also able to accompany them on the school visits. As we do not have any additional pool in the placement of assignees' children, the decision to accept the child will be solely dependent on the schools themselves, and each school has their own applicant filtering process. We do suggest that if the assignees are on a short-term contract, which is predominantly less than 2 years, that their children follow the exact same curriculum that they've been exposed to back home. This is particularly important with older students who will be requested to write tests and/or exams. This will assist the student with their physical, educational, and psychological transition at the end of the assignee's contract. We also have schools that accommodate a more practical education. We have specialized schools to assist children who require additional assistance, whatever that may be, or require additional resources. However, an evaluation report from their current school will usually need to be sent through to the school as part of the application process. Now we'll look at tertiary education. After a student has matriculated from high school, they can either proceed to entering the workforce or extend their education by enrolling in a university, technikon, or college. South Africa has universities which have been ranked as some of the top tertiary institutes internationally. Students also have the option of working full-time and studying part-time through institutes such as University of South Africa, which is commonly referred to as UNISA, or Get Smarter. If we look now at the specific private and international schools. International schools are the more popular for assignees whose children are currently following an American or British-based education. These schools do not require students to study some of our 11 official languages, such as Afrikaans, Xhosa, Sotho, etc. These are taught in the local private and public curriculum. The main differences between public and private schools is the cost of the school fees, the class sizes, the facilities, and also the resources that those schools have available to them. We have international schools based in all of our major cities in South Africa. We also have language-based schools in Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. French and German are generally the main options within these cities. The culture. The culture of a school depends on the school itself. Many of the public and private schools put emphasis on academic results, or they use the resources to drive their sporting division. Many of the single-sex schools, particularly the boys' schools, have made it compulsory for students to play a summer sport and winter sport. The most popular sporting options are cricket, swimming, tennis or water polo in the summer, and rugby or hockey in the winter. Matric students will be required to write the South African National Exam paper, and if they pass, will graduate with a National Senior Certificate, regardless of the school they attended. Exceptions are, however, made in regards to the international private schools or homeschooling services that are working on a private curriculum. We will review now the same MyMap selection, and I'll be able to highlight how the private and international schools in the areas congregate in certain districts. So I'm going to bring up the exact same map that we had previously. So, and Cape Town specifically mentioned, I indicated that a lot of the southern suburbs being the more popular option because it does house a lot of the international schools. And then the two language-based schools, our French school and our German school, is actually based in the city center. If we highlight the private school, you'll see exactly how many schools are congregated in this area. This is only, however, the private schools as well as the international schools. We actually do have a lot more government schools that are highlighted in all the main cities, but in order to streamline the data, I've only concentrated on the international and private schools. There you'll see in Cape Town. Now, if I bring back the areas, you'll see how they're all connected. So southern suburbs and the city center being the main areas. In Durban only has one language-based school, and that's the German school in Westford. Now, if we highlight the private schools, you'll see how all the schools congregate along the north, along the coastline, and you'll see how it's mimicked in the same areas which were highlighted previously. Now, if I do the exact same thing in Johannesburg, you'll see the international schools are predominantly based in the north of Durban, and we've got schools based in Pretoria. Like I said, it's only an hour commute between Pretoria and Johannesburg, so it is doable should any of the signees wish to stay in Johannesburg and send their kids to Pretoria. Also, with regards to the private schools, quite a few of the private schools in Johannesburg, if you can see below, actually start with state. So it's an easy way to distinguish a lot of the private schools. So you can see, again, predominantly in Johannesburg and predominantly in Pretoria. If I highlight the exact same expat areas, you'll see how they're all clustered together. Now we'll be reviewing the cost of the school fees. The cost of school fees in South Africa. School fees for international and private schools in South Africa can be anything between 50,000 Rand to 300,000 Rand per annum. For easy translation, that equates to about $3,400 to $20,000 per year. Some of the international schools do provide you the option to pay your school fees in either our local currency or international currency. The exact school fees will vary from each school and can be dependent on the size of the school, the facilities offered, and the grade in which your child will be enrolling into. Additional expenses which are not included in the school fees include school uniform, which is very popular in South Africa, textbooks, art supplies, and lunches. Many extracurricular activities are also excluded from the existing school fees, as well as the associated sporting equipment. School term. South African school term is broken up into 4 individual terms. Each term is separated by pre-allocated school holidays. The new school year mimics the calendar year by commencing in January and ending in December. In saying this, the American school and some of the international schools will have a different school year. Their school year will generally commence in September and will conclude the following year in July. Application process. It's always suggested to assignees to submit their children's school application as soon as possible. Many schools have streamlined this process by providing an online application form which can also be submitted online. Fortunately, most school websites are very detailed in explaining the school's curriculum, the fees associated with the school culture, and provides full information on the application process. Please see the list of documents and information which the school could ask for in the completion of the child's application process. So a birth certificate, proof of residency, the child's medical history, records of immunization, transfer card, which can also be referred to as a transfer certificate, the emergency contact form, a parent's pay slip, and a study permit if the learner is not a South African citizen. International students may also be asked to supply an unabridged birth certificate, which is a document where both parents of the child have to provide permission for the child to enter and exit South Africa. Questions. As we're reaching the end of the webinar, I will be answering as many questions as possible. If you are yet to ask something, please type a question for me now and I'll address each question individually. Please note that more information on this topic may be obtained by reaching out to us via marketing@relocationafrica.com. We'll then be able to ascertain how best we can assist you within the realms of the mobility services we offer. I see we do have one question. Sam, thank you very much for your question. So Sam's question is, what is the average waiting time for the schools? That's a good question. Now, that would specifically depend on the schools themselves. So in saying that, some schools will require you to apply at the beginning of the year and will only let you know at the end of the year. We do have a couple of assignees now that, because they're being told that they're relocating, they literally only have a month's notice to be told because they've applied now October and the school year ends in December. So now the school only has 2 months notice. So I would say if the child applies at the beginning of the year, you can expect anything from 3 months to 6 months, depending on how popular the school is. If the school is full already, they will generally tell you straight up. So a couple of the main big schools that are in high demand and are often booked up in the beginning of the year will tell the assignees straight off, unfortunately, we're full. But generally look anything between 3 months to 6 months. But in saying that, it will depend on the school themselves. Agatha, thank you for your question. Would schools refuse to enroll a child that is not immunized? That is a bit of they do. It will depend on the school themselves. The government schools and the private schools do work slightly differently. I can't actually say that yes or no. Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do with your question, Agatha, is I'm going to get back to you with the information on that. Personally, yeah, I think it's best I will do some research on that question and I'll get back to you via the email. Thank you for that. Fabian, what documents are requested to the EE in order to rent a property? That's a fantastic question. We actually had a previous webinar by Lucy, one of my colleagues, who actually spoke about the documents that are needed. We can definitely send you through that link. It was webinar number 1, and that will have all the information of what you need and with whether to renting a property in Cape Town. Fantastic. Does anybody have any more questions? We'll just wait a few moments. Okay, Natasha, we have another question. Do you parents have to enroll every school year, or is it one-time enrollment? With regards to that question, if the child is changing from junior school to high school, even though they might be going from the same school, they still have to reapply. A lot of the schools will still require to inform the school, particularly, I presume a lot of the international schools will still require that the school be informed that they are going to be proceeding to the next year. And that's generally done with securing either the deposit or filling out the application form. But generally it is kind of expected that the child will move from the 1 year to the next year. Like I said, unless they're going from junior school to high school. Blake, in general, out of the independent schools, is there any school that is particularly oversubscribed? Similarly, any particular age groups that tend to be popular and fill up quickly? To be absolutely honest, generally the beginning of the school year, so anybody who's starting grade 1, grade 2, that's where they are very competitive in getting their kids into school, because once the child is in the beginning of the school year, they generally move on until the end of junior school. The same thing is saying that in grade 8, which is the first year of high school, that year is generally quite competitive, and because that often leads, once a child is in grade 8 already, they can easily proceed to matric. So it's the beginning of junior school and the beginning of high school, which is a child turning 7 within that year, and then high school is a child turning 13 within grade 8. So those are the 2 years which are extremely competitive. Any more questions? I'll also wait a few moments if anybody thinks of anything. Okay. But like I said, even though the webinar has come to an end, please, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to the email address that is on your screens now, marketing@relocationafrica.com. If you think of anything either tonight or in future, we're happy to proceed. If you have a specific assignee that you're wanting that are moving to South Africa and you want to raise the issue with either schooling or housing, and a specific issue has come up, maybe the child has special needs and you need some assistance on something specifically, we're happy to assist. Fantastic. Just want to say thank you again for everyone joining today. We'll be sending out invitations to our next webinar taking place in November soon. This webinar will be housing, schooling, utilities, and local registrations in Nairobi, Kenya. Within the next week, a linked recording of this webinar will be sent to you. Please feel free to share this with any of your colleagues who could not attend today. Likewise, if you think of any colleagues who might enjoy future webinars from us, please let us know, and they're welcome to sign up at marketing@Relocation Africa. Just want to say, wishing you all a great remainder of the week ahead. Goodbye for now.